Hey everyone, it's Dave Robertson with FlipperForce. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar about how to estimate rehab costs. This webinar is probably going to be about 30 minutes to an hour long, and I'm just going to briefly talk about how much a rehab costs. So that's a question that's really asked a lot on different online forums like BiggerPockets and that. You'll see people asking how much does a rehab cost, or how much should I budget dollar per square foot for my rehab. And I'm going to talk briefly about why you can't just ask that, because the answer is it depends. I'm going to go through the different methods of estimating rehab costs, the dollar per square foot method, and then the detailed estimation method. And then we're going to talk about the process of learning how to estimate rehab costs. So learning how to estimate rehab costs, it's a skill that's learned over time and through experience. So unfortunately, watching this 1 hour webinar, it's not going to tell you everything that you need to know, but hopefully you will learn some basic information about the different methods of estimating rehab costs. You'll learn the process of estimating rehab costs, and we'll also dive into a real life example where I share some different tips and tricks on how I estimate rehab costs on my projects. So a little bit about me. I'm the founder of FlipperForce, house flipping and rehab project management software. I'm also the founder of the house flipping spreadsheet. So the house flipping spreadsheet is an Excel spreadsheet that I created about 7 years ago for my own house flipping business. I decided that other people might think it was handy, so I started selling it online. That morphed into one of the most craziest spreadsheets you've probably ever seen. And then now it's morphed into a web-based platform called FlipperForce. So I've been a part-time house flipper here in Kansas City since about 2011. I was also a professional commercial construction cost estimator for a local construction company here in Kansas City. So that process involved estimating costs for commercial construction projects from $50,000 up to $50 million here in Kansas City. So my professional experience is estimating costs, and then that's really kind of translated over into flipping houses and estimating renovation costs for my house flips and rehabs. So I'm sure you're all wondering, how much does a rehab cost? This is one of the most frequently asked questions that I see new house flippers asking online, is how much does a rehab cost, or how much should I budget per square foot for my rehab? And unfortunately, the answer is it depends. So, and I've got an analogy that I call my bad dinner date analogy, because asking how much does a rehab cost is kind of like asking how much does a dinner date cost. It depends, right? So Match.com did a study. As you can see, the prices vary across the country. You can see in South Dakota, you could get a dinner date, 2 dinners, a bottle of wine, and 2 movie tickets for $38. If you go over there and you look at New York, it's about $300. So as you can see, the prices vary pretty dramatically just by state. So that's a 7x difference between South Dakota and New York State. So as you can see, prices vary substantially by location, and there's a bunch of other factors that really influence the cost of a dinner date, and some of those translate into the factors that influence your rehab costs as well. So the location of the restaurant, that's what we just showed you there. Obviously the prices vary substantially depending on if you're working in downtown New York City, or if you're in a suburban area in Des Moines, Iowa. So the location of the rehab project, the location of the restaurant, obviously is going to have a big impact on the overall prices that you're going to pay for your rehab project. The type of the restaurant, so is this a 5-star steakhouse or a McDonald's? So that translates to the type of property. So is this a high-end rehab? Or is this going to be just a cosmetic rehab that you're doing for a rental property? So the quality of the restaurant, or the quality of the chef. So is this a Michelin star chef making you dinner, or is this a teenager at McDonald's? And then as far as quality of craftsmanship, so is this a craftsman, a carpenter that's doing the work, or is this just a guy that is a handyman or an unskilled laborer that's doing the work on your property? The quality of the food, is this a filet mignon, or is this a frozen burger patty? which translates to the quality of the materials that you're using on your rehab project. So are these high-end custom materials that you're using on your flip, or are these just builder grade materials that you're buying as cheaply as possible from Home Depot, or maybe you're going to the Habitat for Humanity rehab store and you're buying hand-me-down materials. And then the type of courses ordered and the number of courses. So basically that translates to the scope of the repairs. So what is the actual scope of work that's happening on the property? Are you doing roofing? Are you doing siding, exterior painting? Are you gutting the interior of the house, doing a kitchen, bathroom, finishes throughout? So that's obviously, again, going to dramatically impact the cost of your rehab. So again, that's why you can't just ask, how much does a rehab cost? You can't just ask, how much does a dinner date cost? Because it's going to depend dramatically on those 6 factors. So the location, the type of project, the quality of the craftsmanship, the quality of the materials that you're using, the size of the property, the number of beds and baths, and quite frankly, there's probably 100 more small factors that just influence the cost of your rehab that you're going to be doing for your house. So again, just trying to hammer home the point that you can't just ask people how much does a rehab cost and then use that as your budget. You really need to be thinking about everything that needs to go into your estimate, itemizing all of the repairs, putting together a detailed estimate, and pricing it out that way. So you may be wondering, okay, enough with that bad dinner date analogy, Dave. How do I really estimate rehab costs? So there are 2 different methods to estimate rehab costs. There's the dollar per square foot estimation method. This is basically just a quick rule of thumb that you can use to quickly estimate rehab costs. It's generally a lot faster. Basically all you're doing is you're multiplying a dollar per square foot amount by your property square footage. So for example, $35 or $40 a square foot multiplied by your property square footage. So if you had a 1,500 square foot house, $40 times 1,500 square feet would be an overall budget of $60,000. So basically you're multiplying a dollar per square foot value by your property square footage to quickly create a budget for your project. And then the more accurate way of doing it is the detailed estimation method, where you're actually going through the property, you're walking through it, you're inspecting the property, you're quantifying all of the repairs, and then you're putting a price to those repairs. So you're actually going through, you're examining the condition of the property, looking at everything that needs to be repaired or replaced, and then you're putting a quantity and a price together to come up with a detailed estimate and scope of work. So obviously that process is going to be a lot more time consuming, but generally that process is going to be more accurate than the dollar per square foot method. So here's the dollar per square foot method, just to dive into it a little bit further. I went through and did a detailed case study video on 3 different types of rehab. So I broke it down by cosmetic, heavy, and full gut. Cosmetic would be just basically some exterior painting on the exterior of the property, maybe some light landscaping. And then on the interior of the property, you're going to be doing interior painting, some new flooring, and then new light fixtures, new plumbing fixtures. So that's about as light as a remodel as you can do to a property. Maybe you're just trying to get a rental property up and going, so you're just trying to freshen it up with some new paint, some new flooring, stuff like that. And that would be about $10 to $20 a square foot. So in order to come up with that $10 to $20 a square foot, I went through a detailed estimate and put a price to exterior painting, landscaping, interior painting, new flooring, and the new fixtures, and it was roughly around $10 to $20 a square foot. So that's how I came up with that price. I did a detailed estimate to come up with that dollar per square foot price. It came up with a budget, then I backed into it by dividing that by the square footage to come up with that price. Same thing with the heavy. I created a detailed estimate for a heavy remodel. So in that scenario, we're doing a little bit more exterior work. We're redoing the roofing. We are replacing all of the windows. We're replacing the exterior doors, and then we're going to be painting the exterior. And then on the interior, we're basically reusing the existing floor plan. We're replacing the kitchens with some new kitchen cabinetry and countertops and appliances. In the bathrooms, we're basically gutting the bathrooms. We're just going to be replacing the fixtures, putting in new tile, new vanity, stuff like that. And then we're going to be replacing new flooring and wall finishes throughout, so painting throughout, and then replacing all of the light fixtures. So much heavier remodel than the cosmetic, and then that one was roughly about $35 to $50 a square foot, depending on the scope of work that you've got there in that heavy remodel. And then the full gut remodel takes it one step further than the heavy gut. Basically, instead of reusing the existing floor plan, you're doing some interior structural changes. Maybe you're tearing out a wall in between the kitchen and the living room. Maybe you're reconfiguring the master suite and the master bathroom setup. You're also replacing the wiring and the plumbing in the property, and then installing new HVAC systems. So that's where you've got that full gut, is really where you're doing some major structural changes. You're tearing out some drywall maybe and refinishing the drywall, and then you're also upgrading the MEP system. So that jumps it up to about $50 to $80 a square foot. So again, I did a detailed analysis to come up with these values here, so that way hopefully you can understand what scope of work is included in each of those categories, the cosmetic, heavy, and full gut there, and that's how I came up with those price ranges. But truth be told, as proven by my bad dinner date analogy, obviously prices can vary substantially. So using a dollar per square foot value that some random guy on the internet like myself recommends can be very dangerous. So it's always best to calculate your own dollar per square foot values from your own cost history that work for your own specific projects, your materials, and your location. So that's where the detailed estimation method comes into play. So again, you're going to be walking through the property and inspecting the property's condition, evaluating all of the repairs that need to happen on the property. Then you're going to be putting together a detailed list of all of those repairs and a list of the quantities of those repairs. So for example, you're going to count the number of interior doors that you're going to replace on the property. So if you've got 10 interior doors, you're going to list out 10 interior doors. You're going to multiply that by a price, a labor price and a material price. So you might have $75 to install the interior door, and then the interior door material might be around $85 for a hollow core door. So 10 times $75 per door in install, that would be $750. Then 10 times $850 or $85 per door would be $850. So overall you've got around $1,600 there for your interior doors. So that's how you do that. Then you'd go through and you'd price out your tile. You've got 100 square feet of tile. You're going to spend about $4 on the tile material, maybe another $4 on labor and install. So you've got $8 a square foot there, times 100 square feet is equal to an $800 budget for the tile. Same thing with the carpeting. Carpeting's generally pretty easy. It's generally around $2 a square foot. You can get some for a little bit cheaper than that, but generally speaking, it's around $2 a square foot. If you've got 500 square feet of carpeting, multiply that by $2 a square foot, and you've got a $1,000 budget for your carpet. So that's how the detailed estimation method works. I'm going to show you a detailed estimate here in a few minutes when I go through a case study. So you may be wondering, so how the heck do I price repairs if I know absolutely nothing about construction? Which is a valid question. And to be honest with you, you shouldn't expect to know how to do that. Learning to estimate rehab costs, again, is a skill that takes time and experience. Unfortunately, you're not going to leave this webinar being an expert estimating rehab costs. So if that was your expectation, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but if you really want to learn how to estimate rehab costs, you'll need to spend some time to build a foundational knowledge of construction and how to inspect properties. And then from there, you'll really be able to learn how to put together a detailed list and scope of work of what needs to happen on the property. And then from there, you can put a price to those repairs. So here is the process that I generally recommend for learning how to estimate rehab costs. First, I'd recommend getting the book on estimating rehab costs by Jay Scott. So Jay Scott wrote this book here. He's from Bigger Pockets, a pretty popular author and person over there at Bigger Pockets who wrote this book, and he discusses the fundamentals of budgeting and pricing rehab costs. And in the book he talks about the different steps, tips, and tricks that he uses to estimate costs for 25 different trade categories and hundreds of repairs. So if you're really looking for the foundational knowledge on how to estimate rehab costs, I would definitely just pick up this book, read through it, use it as a reference as you're learning. You don't have to know everything right up front, but that can be a handy reference for you too as you are going through and practicing estimating costs. So definitely pick that book up. Next, I'd recommend going to Lowe's and Home Depot. So go walk through Lowe's or Home Depot and just start looking at materials, so that way you can get a better idea of what materials cost. So go walk down the vanity section and look at the different vanities that they've got there, and you'll start to learn, you can buy a basic builder grade vanity for $200, or you might be able to buy a big fancy vanity for $1,000. So you'll start to see that price range of what vanities cost, and you'll be able to see the level of finish and quality of the materials for the different styles of vanities that they have there. Go walk down the appliance aisle and look at all the refrigerator prices. You can find a basic refrigerator probably for around $800, but then you might also see a high-end French door refrigerator for around $3,000. So just go walk through Lowe's and Home Depot. That process will help you start to build kind of an internal database in your head of what things cost, and give you a better feel for what materials and finishes you're going to be wanting to install on your own house flips and rehabs. So go head over to Lowe's and Home Depot, and then also contact local contractors for pricing. So Lowe's and Home Depot, that's where you'll learn about material prices. The other aspect of that is you need to learn about labor prices and installation prices. So in order to do that, you need to contact local contractors for pricing. So you can call a roofer and you can ask them, what would you typically charge for an asphalt shingle roof on a average 1,500 square foot house, and they might be able to give you a rough budget price. So they might say, oh, that's around $300 a square typically. So that would be a good rough budget for you that you could use in your preliminary estimates. You could call a hardwood flooring contractor and ask them how much they charge to install hardwood flooring, or how much they charge to refinish hardwood floors. So they might tell you, if we're installing a hardwood floor, that might be about $4 a square foot, and then to refinish an existing hardwood floor, that might be about $2.50 to $3 a square foot. So some contractors, they'll be a little reluctant to share that information with you without seeing an actual property. But if you just tell them, you're a new house flipper, you're a real estate investor that's trying to buy some fixer-upper properties, you're just looking for some rough budget numbers that you can use to help you evaluate those house flips, they may be willing to help you out there and give you some rough budget numbers. And then so you're going to take that data and information that you start to gather, so that research that you're doing at Lowe's and Home Depot on material prices, and then that information that your local contractors are giving you for the installation prices, and then you really need to start building out a database. So what I did when I was first starting, I created a spreadsheet. So just a spreadsheet where I could kind of list out and store all of this information on all of the different repairs I was learning about. I think Jay Scott's book, the book on estimating rehab costs, also comes with a template spreadsheet that you can use to help you do that. Otherwise, what you're looking at here, this is our repair estimator tool. This repair estimator tool comes pre-built with a database, so you can see it's got some different categories in there, and then each of those categories come pre-built with a list of repairs and prices that you can use as a starting point. So you can use that to help you get started, but then obviously you can adjust those prices, and then you can customize your own database for your own specific projects that you've got going on. So the next step I'd recommend is just sitting down and practicing the process of putting together a detailed estimate for your project. So I would say go walk through a bunch of potential rehab properties, go talk to your real estate agent, see if you can get into a couple houses, or you can find some properties virtually online on Zillow or Redfin, and just start practicing putting together a detailed list of repairs that need to happen on those properties, put together a detailed scope of work quantify those repairs. So go walk through a property, see if the roof needs to be replaced, see if the windows need to be replaced. Go walk on the inside of the property. Does the kitchen need a remodel? Do the bathrooms need to be remodeled? Does the flooring need to be replaced? And then put together a list of repairs that need to happen and start putting together an estimate of costs. So that process of walking through properties, inspecting properties, and then putting together a scope of work and an estimate will help you get a better understanding of the estimating process. It'll help you get a better understanding of construction costs for those different scopes of work, and that will ultimately help you get a better intuitive database in your head, so that way when you're out walking a property you can say, oh, based upon my practicing that I've been doing, oh, the roofing seems to be in a range of about $4,000 to $5,000 on these 1,500 square foot houses, or windows are around $300 each. We've got 10 windows here, so it looks like that's going to be about $3,000. So just practicing will help you have that internal knowledge and database in your head, but it'll also make you a lot quicker when you start putting this stuff into your spreadsheet or into a software. You'll have already gone through that process and you'll be much faster at it. And then finally, the last step I would recommend is just getting your first flip. So you can practice all you want, but ultimately I think you're going to learn the most about estimating rehab costs by actually flipping your first house. So I think, getting your first rehab project, it's going to require you to put together that detailed scope of work. It's going to require you to talk to your contractors. It's going to require you to compare and review bid proposals. So you're going to get a bid for your exterior painting, and you might have a low bidder at $2,000, but then you might have a high bidder at $4,000 or $5,000, and then you might have somebody in between at $3,500. So that whole process will help you evaluate different bids. It'll help you see the different price ranges that you can expect for those particular repairs. So then you'll know, okay, it looks like painting somewhere in between $2,000 to $4,000 on these 1,500 square foot houses. So that's roughly where I could expect that to be probably on my next house. So that whole process of putting together that scope of work, evaluating the different bid proposals and stuff like that, making countless trips to Home Depot. I mean, when you start flipping your first house, you're going to be making trips to Home Depot, buying materials for your contractor, buying vanities, buying plumbing fixtures, buying light fixtures, and that's going to help you get a better understanding of what things cost. And ultimately, inevitably, you are going to make mistakes. You're going to underestimate things, but I do think you're going to learn 90% of what you need to know just by doing your first flip. So let's go through a quick case study. This case study is a live-in flip that my wife and I just sold back in May of 2020. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, 2,500 square feet. It was built in the 1950s. I would consider it to be kind of a heavy gut renovation. So the property needed the kitchen reconfigured. So we tore out a wall in between the kitchen and the living room. We also changed the layout of the master bathroom in the master bedroom. So the previous master bedroom had a really small bathroom. We reconfigured a room and a space in order to get a much bigger master bath with a walk-in shower and a walk-in closet. We also finished the basement. So the basement was not finished, and we ended up finishing the basement. And then we did a complete rewire, replumb, and also a new HVAC system on the property. So here's some before and after pictures here. You can see this is the living room. So basically in the living room we tore up the carpet. We renovated the fireplace there, kind of added some shiplap on that, and then added some crown molding in the living room. Other than that, basically just painted. And then in the living room here you can see we tore down this main wall. Tore down that main wall surrounding the staircase there. Open that up into the kitchen, so that way it was just a more open floor plan. Refinished the hardwood floors again, and we opened that up into the kitchen. You can see this is the old kitchen layout. It was more of a galley style kitchen. We created a U-shaped kitchen and enclosed that door, so that door was going into kind of an awkward dining den area that we transitioned and changed it into the master suite. Here's the living room, and then there's the finished basement there. So it went from being kind of a damp and dreary dark basement to a nice finished basement there. And then there's my office. This was the 5th bedroom in the basement that I converted into an office, so you can see my pride and joy, my Mahomes jersey there. And here's the overall layout. So this was the existing floor plan. You can see what we did. So you can see in the kitchen we tore out the staircase, tore out the kitchen cabinetry. This was the old awkward kind of dining den area. We converted this to the master. This was the old configuration. You could see the old master bedroom was over here in the back left corner, and it had a really small master bathroom. So we tore that all out and reconfigured it. So this is what it looks like now. So again, we converted this into the master bathroom here. We have a walk-in suite with a walk-in shower and then a bigger walk-in closet. So overall, you know, we had a nice master bedroom with a fireplace in it, much bigger walk-in bathroom and closet there. So that's a quick overview there of the renovation that we did. I'm going to jump into our repair estimator tool here, and I'll go through a quick estimate on using our FlipperForce repair estimator tool. Okay, so let me pop open our repair estimator here, and we can run through a quick detailed case study of how to create an estimate and a scope of work for this live-in flip project here. So I've got it open. You can see we've got exteriors, interiors, MEP, which is your MEP Systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, other. So we've got that pre-built with a list of different categories, and then each of those categories have a list of repairs and unit prices that you can use to help you price out your estimate for the project. So on this project, the exterior, the house itself didn't need a whole lot of work. It was a brick exterior with metal siding, and the windows were in decent shape. There was a decent amount of work to the existing driveway. We had to rebuild the driveway. We installed a new concrete sidewalk, and then we replaced the existing deck, expanded it a little bit. So that was some of the major repairs that we did to the exterior. So let's get started. Basically, you can see that it's broken down by category again: roofing, siding, masonry, exterior painting. Really didn't have any of that. The first repair that we had was decks and porches. So we rebuilt a new deck on the back of the property. So the way that this works is basically you need to plug in your quantity, so the quantity of work that needs to happen, multiply that by the unit price to give you an estimate. So our new deck was around 200 square feet. 200 square feet times $20 a square foot, and that includes both the labor and material. So 200 square feet times $20 a square foot is equal to a $4,000 price for the decks and porches. So that's a rough budget that we have included there. That pricing there is based upon our experience with deck pricing, but we've also referenced the RS Means Construction Database. So I would recommend maybe picking up that book as a reference point, but basically that's how we can create a rough budget there for our deck, is multiplying the quantity of the deck, the size of the deck that we're going to be building, multiplying it by the unit price to give us a rough budget. So we've estimated the cost for our very first item here. Let's move on to exterior doors. On the exterior of the property, we installed some new storm doors, and we installed a new steel entry door in the basement. So let's plug in one steel entry door. You can see we've got $250 plugged in for a steel entry door and $150 for the labor. You can probably buy a steel entry door for closer to $200 if you're just doing a basic steel entry door. And then we had some glass storm doors. So we installed a exterior storm door on the front door and the side door. So those are just those glass doors that you can put on the front of your house just to protect your main exterior door. So we've got $200 there, $250 there for the material for both of those doors, plus $100 for labor. And then we need some exterior door hardware. So those storm doors come with the door hardware, but that steel entry door, we need to include a door lock set for that steel entry door, so we're plugging in about $50 for that. Next, we're going to move on to concrete. So we installed a new driveway on the front of our house. I think that was about 50 lineal feet times 3 feet wide, so we've got about 150 lineal feet there. And we've got a sidewalk, 150 square feet, 150 square feet times $6 a square foot is $900 for that new sidewalk. And then we replaced our driveway, so I think that was around 1,500 square feet. 1,500, 5 inches thick. We basically tore it up and completely replaced it. So you can see that's about $4,500 for the new, and then about $1,000 to tear up the existing asphalt pavement. And then landscaping. So you've got a couple different options on landscaping. You have the option to break it down as a detailed estimate and quantify each shrub that you're going to be buying, each tree, each flower that you're going to be buying for the new landscaping design that you're going to be doing for the property. Generally what I do is I'll just plug in a lump sum number though, because I don't need to waste my time thinking about every single shrub that I'm going to buy on the property, every single flower. I usually will just plug in a budget of around $300 to $500 for adding in some new mulch beds, cleaning up the mulch beds a little bit, and then buying about 10 shrubs or plants that we can plant to keep a nice, clean, simple landscaping design on the front of the house. And then when we do go to buy all of the materials for the landscaping, I'll just know that I've got about a $500 budget for the landscaping materials, and then I'll just buy my materials based upon that budget. So that's what I generally do for landscaping. Again, I don't waste my time going through all the detailed list of every single plant. I'll just plug in an allowance there for the landscaping. And then finally, we did install some new shutters on the exterior of the house. I believe there were 4 windows, each had 2 shutters, so that's 8 shutters, and those were about $80. So those were some custom wood shutters that we bought from Home Depot. So 8 times 80, $640 in material, plus about $35 to install each of them. So we've got about $300 in install for about $1,000 total for those shutters on the exterior. So that's a quick breakdown of the work that we did on the exterior of the property. You can see it's about $13,000. So a lot of that was in the deck. We had $4,000 in the deck. We had another $5,600 redoing the driveway, about $750 in landscaping, and then those miscellaneous shutters was about $1,000 there. So now we're moving on to interior. So we're moving into the interior of the house, and we're going to estimate all the interior work that we're doing on the property. So demolition is the first one on the list. Generally, I will estimate demolition costs by the hour. So I'll think about how many man hours it's going to take for a crew of 2 to 3 guys to go through the property. So if you had 3 guys working on the property, that would be 24 hours in that workday. So each guy's working 8 hours. That's a 24-hour shift per day. And it's generally going to take about 2 to 3 days to tear out a property. So I'm going to plug in 3 days, 3 guys for 3 full days. So 3 days times 24 working hours per day is 72 hours. So we've got 72 hours in here times a labor rate of about $20 per hour. So we've got $1,400 plugged in there for the demolition work. And then the next thing I'll plug in is a dumpster rental. I think on this house we ended up using 2 50-yard dumpsters. So for the demolition we had a dumpster, but then when we got into the actual finishes of the property, we bought another dumpster for all the miscellaneous materials that we had from, scrap lumber and stuff like that. Okay, otherwise you'll get into remediation, framing, insulation. We don't really have any of that. Now when we did finish out the basement, we did have some framing there. I'm going to just go ahead and plug in a basement remodel plug number down here at the bottom. So if you go down here to the bottom, we've got a basement category, and it basically says finish existing basement. So you can quantify the amount of basement area that you're wanting to finish and then multiply it by a unit price to give you a rough budget to do the drywall, do the finishes, the carpet, and all of the electrical and stuff like that. So that basement was about 30 by 20, so it was about 600 square feet. 600 square feet times $25 a square foot to finish the basement is a $15,000 budget to finish that basement. So instead of going in and trying to quantify all of the framing that we're going to have to do, so calculating the lineal footage and the square footage of the framing and the drywall and the insulation, I've essentially just plugged in a plug number down there at the bottom for finishing the basement. So now we've got all of that work covered there. And then if we do have some other miscellaneous framing, like for example, we want to do some framing to open up the wall from the kitchen to the living room. So I'm just going to plug in $2,500 for that work. So that should cover installing a new beam, doing any kind of structural support that we need to do for that load-bearing beam. So that's how you can do that. So we've got the framing covered for the structural work that we're doing to the interior of the kitchen, and then that work that we're doing down there in the basement. So we've got that covered. Now we're going to move on to kitchens. So you can see we've got an item in here for kitchens packaged. So this would be a package deal to remodel an entire kitchen if you just want to quickly plug in a lump sum number for the entire kitchen. Generally, it seems like on the projects that I've done, if you're doing kind of an average grade remodel of maybe a 10 by 15 kitchen, it's going to be somewhere around the range of $10,000 to $15,000. You can see we've got $10,000 in here for material, $2,500 in labor. So you can plug that in just like that, and it'll give you a quick budget for that work. So I think on this house we spent around $4,000 on the cabinets, spent around $2,000 on the countertops, another $2,000 to $3,000 on the appliances, so that's around $9,000 on material. So that $10,000 budget is going to be pretty close. So that's one way that you can do that. Otherwise, you could actually go into cabinetry and you could quantify all of the base cabinetry and upper cabinetry that you've got that you're going to be installing. So you could say, you're going to get 15 lineal feet of base cabinetry. You're going to have 10 lineal feet of upper cabinetry. You're going to have one pantry cabinet. So you can do it that way as well. So that would be the other way of doing that. So you can see when we did it that way, we had about $4,000 to $5,000 in cabinetry material. If we can go down here to countertops, we can add in our stone countertops. So if we had 40 square feet times $45 a square foot, so that's the other way of doing it. So you can go in and you can do a kitchens packaged and you're just plugging in one lump sum, or you can actually go in and do a detailed quantity takeoff of all of the stuff that's going to happen in that particular kitchen. Go in and select the appliances that you want, so you could do a detailed takeoff of your appliances. So you could say I'm going to have a refrigerator, a dishwasher, stuff like that. Or again, you can just plug in a package, so the appliance package. So now that I've kind of quantified the kitchen cabinetry, countertops, and appliances, I don't want to have that doubled up, so I can actually just delete this kitchen packaged item that we've got up there just to make sure that we're not doubled up. Another way that you can estimate your bathrooms is the same way that we did the bathrooms or the kitchens packaged. You can just plug in a lump sum value for doing a full bathroom remodel. In my experience, it seems like it's anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 to $6,000 to do a full bathroom remodel. That would be like a typical hall bathroom. If you're doing a master bath that's pretty large, obviously that could be a little bit more expensive. If you're doing a half bath where you don't even have a shower or a tub or anything like that, that could be cheaper. So that's why we have that broken out separately. So again, you can quantify it that way. So you could say we've got 3 bathrooms. We're going to do a bathroom remodel to all 3 of those bathrooms. We've got $3,500 in our budget for each bathroom. 3,500 times 3, we've got $10,000 in our budget for remodeling those bathrooms. So you can do it that way, or I'm going to quantify it for you guys. So I'm just going to delete that and I'll show you how you can do it by going in and doing the detailed quantity. So you'll have to go in and you'll have to pick the number of vanities that you want in your cabinetry section, you'll go down to the countertop section, make sure that you've got your vanity countertops plugged in here. So we've got 3 countertops. So if you're going to do a detailed take off of all of that stuff that's going on in the bathroom, you just need to make sure that you've got all of that stuff picked out in your estimate elsewhere. So we'll get into the plumbing and the tile and the other stuff that's included in the bathrooms and the kitchens here shortly. Let's move on to interior doors. So we actually didn't replace any interior doors. We used the existing panel doors that they had, but we did replace the door hardware. So we had about 10 interior doors times $15 a latch for the materials and $15 for labor. We also had a custom barn door, and then we had 2 mirror doors. So we're just putting together some quantities here, using those quantities and prices to create a estimate and a budget. For interior woodwork, we did some shiplap and stuff. We also did some crown molding. So in that main area, we probably had about 100 lineal feet of crown molding that we did. So we actually bought new crown molding materials there and then installed that ourselves. Otherwise, we had some shiplap paneling that we kind of did throughout the property. I'm not really sure what that quantity ended up being. I got a little carried away, if I'm being honest. So there was quite a bit of shiplap that I put up just in various parts of the house. So you can plug in a budget there. Maybe you're going to do 100 to 200, 300 square feet of some shiplap decorative wall paneling somewhere in the house, so you can kind of plug that in that way. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just plug in, an allowance and say, let's throw in $500 into our budget to cover some kind of decorative wall covering that we might do on a accent wall or something like that. So that's how you can do that. We did have a closet kit that we installed in our new master suite, so I'm going to plug in that there as well. And then we also had a wood handrail with the iron balusters. So when we opened up our staircase, we ended up opening that up, and we needed to install a new handrail with the iron balusters. So that's where that comes into play, and that was about 25 lineal feet. So you can see 25 times $50 a square foot is $1,250 for that handrail. Interior painting, a lot of times I'll just estimate that by just doing the interior property square footage. So overall our interior property square footage was about 2,500 square feet. 2,500 times $2.50 per square foot. It seems like it's around $2.50 a square foot up to $3 a square foot. So a rough budget for that interior painting is around $6,000 to paint the interior of the property. So that's a quick way of doing that. Otherwise, you could go through and you could quantify all the walls and then just price the square footage of the walls that are getting painted. So you could do it that way as well. Carpeting, we installed carpeting in the basement. If you do recall, we did have that basement value down here, so technically the carpet is kind of assumed to be in that $15,000 budget, but otherwise if we had carpet elsewhere in the house, we would need to include that. So we did install some new carpet on the staircase. So that was about 4 feet wide by 20 feet long, so about 80 square feet. So about $320 in new carpet there. And then in that office space, so that was an existing office space in the basement, that area was about 20 by 15, so about 300 square feet of carpet in that office space. So you can see we had about $900 in carpet, not including that other new finished basement area where we've kind of got that covered in our basement category here. Tiling, so this would go into the tile in our kitchen, the tile that we installed in our bathrooms. So again, if we were using that bathrooms packaged item that we mentioned earlier, that might be covered in there, but since we aren't using that, we decided to go ahead and do a detailed estimate. We really need to have that covered here. So we had 3 bathrooms. We had a master bath that probably had about 100 or 200 square feet of floor tile. Then we had a hall bathroom which had another 80 square feet. So we're at 280 plus a small hall bath downstairs. So we're really around 300 square feet of floor tile. And we've got about a budget of $3 a square foot for the material for that. So $4 for install, $3 for material. You can definitely buy cheaper tile than $3 a square foot, but you can certainly find a lot more expensive tile than $3 a square foot. So it kind of depends on the type of house you're doing. If it's a high-end remodel, that price is probably not going to be enough, but if it's a rental grade remodel, then that price might be just fine, or might be even too expensive. So get into that shower tile. So we actually only did shower tile in the master. We didn't do it anywhere else. So this was a 6x3 shower space, 6x3. So that would by 8 feet tall. That is probably around 100 square feet. So you can see we got $400 in there for labor, $300 in there for material, and then we had a shower pan. So this was a custom shower pan that we had built. So let's add that in. So I think if you do a shower pan, okay, that's going to be probably about $250 and another $300 in material. So about $500 for that custom shower pan. So we've got our tile basically done here. Then we did the other miscellaneous tile. So we did have a kitchen backsplash. There's about 40 square feet there. We used a higher end material. It wasn't $15 a square foot. It was probably more around $10 a square foot. So about $400 in kitchen backsplash material. We also did tile on the fireplace. So when we revamped that fireplace, we installed some new tile that matched the tile that we put on our backsplash. That was about 15 square feet. That was the same tile. So we've got $10 a square foot there. So about $300 to do that tile on the fireplace. Okay, the next category is hardwood flooring. So when we pulled up the carpet in the living room, there was some nice hardwood flooring underneath the carpet that we refinished. So that main level was about 1,200 square feet. So if we plug in 1,200 square feet here times $2.50, that's about $3,000 to refinish the hardwood floor. So that pretty much sums up the entire interior renovation. So that's going to be basically the finishes. We need to go take a look at our MEP systems. So we've got plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. For plumbing, we did replumb the entire didn't replumb the entire property. We replumbed the plumbing for the kitchens and then the new bathroom. So when we reconfigured the master bathroom, we had to do some pretty significant replumbing there. Same thing for the kitchen. So we're just going to plug in about $750 for those two locations there. But obviously, it's going to depend on how long the runs are and how extensive the replumbing for the property was. But $1,500 should cover that for us. Otherwise, we're going to go through and we're going to put together all of the plumbing fixtures that we needed to purchase and install for the property. So we had a new kitchen sink, we had a new kitchen faucet, we had a garbage disposal, we needed to hook up the new dishwasher, we needed a water supply line for the refrigerator, and then in those 3 bathrooms, we had 3 bathrooms, we had 3 shower tubs. Well, technically we only had 2 shower tub kits, actually 3 actually. And then the shower pans, so we only did 1 of those. We reused 1, and then we had that custom tile shower pan, and then we had 3 new toilets. Okay. And then HVAC, we did install a new HVAC system. This was just a new furnace and air conditioning. So we're going to plug in a unit there for the air conditioning and then a unit for the furnace. So about $7,000 is what we spent on those 2 pieces of equipment. That wasn't initially in our initial plan, but after living in it for 5 years, we decided to do that over time. And then a programmable thermostat. So we installed a new programmable thermostat. That's just one of those digital thermostats that you can use, that you can sync with your phone. And then as far as electrical is concerned, we did install a new 200 amp panel. And then otherwise, we did some rewiring in the property where we rewired some new circuits. So I guess, for example, in that basement area, we had to do some new wiring down there for the new finished basement. Now again, that's probably included in that basement finish number that we had over here, so we don't necessarily need to plug that in. So let's go through and we're going to actually just quantify all of the light fixtures that we did. So we did some new can lighting on the main floor. We also did a new pendant light. We did some dome lights in some various locations. And then we did some new ceiling fan fixtures in 4 of the bedrooms, and then down in the office, so we had 5 ceiling fans, and I believe that was it. So you can see overall we've got about $4,000 in there for electrical. We've got $7,000 in there for HVAC, and another $4,800 in there for the plumbing. So overall we've spent, around $13,000 on the exterior, another $53,000 on the interior, another $16,000 on MEP Systems. And then as far as other areas that you need to consider in your estimate, so you've got a location adjustment. That would be for if you're in more expensive areas of the country. So basically our database includes national pricing for the national average, but if you are in a more expensive market, you need to make an adjustment there. So if you're in San Francisco, it might be 30% more expensive. So for the national average, this thing's only $83,000 for the national average, but if you're in San Francisco, it could be 30, 40, 50% more expensive. So it could be anywhere from $108,000 up to $124,000 for a similar remodel. So that's what that's for. Contingency is to cover any kind of unforeseen conditions or issues that you might find on the property. So if you're doing a real risky rehab, opening up walls, doing an addition, stuff like that, you're going to find some stuff that maybe is not in your initial estimate. So that's where you can use contingency. On this one, I might include 5 to 10%. It all depends on your comfort level with the scope of work of the project and the risks that you think you might encounter on the project. So you can see 10% contingency adds $8,300 to my budget. And then contractors overhead and profit. This is for if you are going to be hiring a general contractor to manage the subcontractors on your project. So if you are hiring a GC to hire all the subcontractors, deal with the subcontractors on a daily basis, you need to probably be including 10 to 25% overhead and profit to pay that contractor's overhead and profit that he's going to want to make on the deal. So let's see what that comes out to. 15%, that's $12,000. 20% would be 16, 25% would be up to 20 grand that you may need to include in your estimate to cover your contractor's overhead and profit. Now, if you're going to be self-managing all of your subcontractors, then you don't need to include that. This estimating process assumes that you are managing those contractors yourself, but if you are going to be hiring a general contractor to manage the project, you need to make sure that you include that. And then some areas have a labor tax similar to a material tax, where the work that's performed on the project can be taxed by the local jurisdiction. So you may want to include labor tax. We don't have that here in Kansas City, but the material tax is that tax that you pay when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, the sales tax that you're paying on those materials that you purchase at the store. So that's about 7% here in Kansas City. So I'm going to tack on 7%, which is 7% of our material amount. So we've got about $1,500 there. So overall, once we've made those adjustments, added in that contingency and our tax, we've got an overall budget of $92,000. Once you get done creating your estimate, you can use our scope of work notes to build a scope of work. So you'll notice each category has pre-built scope of work notes, which come with some notes that you can tell your contractor what to include in their proposal. So this one in particular for the decking and framing, all decking and framing, the decking, railing, balusters, and stairwork, including the materials, is to be contractor purchased and contractor installed. And then it goes through a list. It needs to be all built according to local building codes. Deck structural design and layout needs to be approved by the city building department prior to installation. Deck joist, column sizes, and structural framing sizes should be confirmed and approved prior to installation. So those are pre-built into the estimator for you. You can customize those to whatever you want them to say, whatever you want the contractor to include in their bid proposal. But then all of that data and information feeds over to a scope of work builder, which you can use to actually build a document that you can give to your contractors. If you are hiring a general contractor to manage the project, you can print this out and give this to them, and you can provide a nice scope of work document for your contractor that tells them exactly what they need to be including in their bid proposal. So this is what it generates. It generates a detailed scope of work of everything that needs to be included. It shows them, the quantities. So if you've got quantities on some of these particular scopes of work, it'll tell them, you need to include 1 steel entry door, 2 glass storm doors, installation of the door hardware, stuff like that. So that's a pretty handy tool for you, as well as the ability to create and generate a scope of work document. Creating a scope of work goes hand in hand with creating an estimate, so that process should really kind of be done while you're performing your estimate. We've got other things that you can do in here. You've got your investment packet builder, which you can take that information that you input into your deal analysis. So we technically haven't, well, I guess we do have a deal analysis in here for this property, but you can see it's got a detailed list of all of the estimated costs that we put together and puts it into a printer friendly format, so that way you can share this with your business partners and your lenders. That way you can raise funding and show them the due diligence that you performed on the property, so they know that you've done a detailed analysis of everything that could happen and all of the risks on the project. And then ultimately, once you get a property under contract, we do have other project management tools that you can use to manage your projects. So we've got a project scheduler here that you can use to create Gantt timelines and charts. We've got a project calendar that you can use to manage all of your ongoing projects. So if you do have multiple projects going on all at once, you can use this overall calendar view to manage your calendar. So you can see we've got interior framing going on, and then we need to measure and order our doors and windows. Then on our bat house project, we've got exterior painting and demolition. So it's a way for you to view everything that you've got going on your monthly calendar, your weekly calendar, and it just provides a nice list view of everything that's going on, so you can manage that process. So that's a quick overview of the deal estimation process. If you have any questions on that or how to estimate rehab costs for your flips, reach out.